Okay.
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 So, ma'am, we are starting now.
अच्छा,
Okay.
ठीक है,
ठीक
जैसे
है.
आप कहेंगे.
So, namaste all. And this is the second episode of season 2. And we are very grateful to all of you who are involved in various activities of philosophy cafe discussion, speech, talk, panel discussion, and all. So, today's our guest speaker is Professor Meera Chakravorty, ma'am, who is a former member of Karnataka State Women's Commission, and presently she is the research faculty in Jain University, New Delhi. She is author or editor of Dynamics of Dissent, which is the collection of poetry from Writers' Workshop. And
No, this is
yeah,
this is a volume. This is a collection,
volume
anthology.
collection.
This is
Okay,
a
okay,
collection, anthology on social justice.
okay, ma'am. I got it from that internet. So,
No. So, okay. Anyway, I had sent you some of the books. Anyway, doesn't matter. Okay, carry on.
okay, ma'am. Yeah.
Uh,
So,
so,
I welcome you, ma'am. So,
thank you.
she's going to talk on B.K. Matilal, Vimal Krishna Matilal, on ineffable. And so, ma'am, I kindly request you to start talk.
हाँ जी. Thank you, Kuruom School of Advanced Sciences Foundation, and I also thanks sincerely Professor Balram ji. वो आ नहीं रहे हैं Professor Balram Singh जी?
मैम कुछ मीटिंग है आज उन लोग की वहाँ BRC मीटिंग कुछ है. यस मैम.
अच्छा.
सिंपोजियम चल रहा है उनका साइंस का. या मैम.
ओके, क्योंकि उनका रेफरेंस मुझे करना है यहाँ पे इसलिए. अच्छा.
अच्छा.
और and all who are related, who are associated with this group, my big namaskaram to everyone. It's nice to know everybody, and then let us then continue. मुझे टाइम कितना दे रहे हैं आप शिप्रा जी?
मैम आपका 35 to 40 minutes for your talk
Okay.
and then
Okay.
following discussion. Yeah.
Okay, ठीक है. So I will begin. It is the concept of ineffable in Indian philosophy, जिसके ऊपर विमल कृष्ण मतीलाल जी ने उनका जो वक्तव्य है वो भी मैं कहूंगी, and then whatever is my analysis, I'll also carry on with it. So now, firstly, on terminology, it is necessary to clarify specific terms used in the discussion, which as well as because we know that Socrates has already said that you have to define your terms. Now, if that is so, then since this is the context of Indian philosophy, it may be noted that the term Indian philosophy is accepted in the West and Europe to indicate the study of the schools of thought in Indian subcontinent. And Professor Matilal's detailed discussion clarifies some misunderstandings and suggests way to identify the distinct nature of the field of study. And within with the Indian philosophy, the concept of ineffability is to be explained. Now, in this context, I must also point out the concern Professor Balram Singh raised in the last meeting about the term darshana in place of the term philosophy, which describes the characteristics of these schools of thought and identifies the critical discourse carried on. Hence, the ideas expressed by Professor Matilal are quite significant when he said, for one who has spent most of his life, quote, for one who has spent most of his life writing books and papers and editing journals on Indian philosophy, this is an odd admission. The expression Indian philosophy is utterly ambiguous and genuine doubt is entertained by many as to the exact significance, unquote. Now, this shows a problem in understanding the study of the schools of thought as proper discourse, in some of these specific contexts. Refuting an old argument that darshanas were primarily therapeutics of moksha to understand reality, Matilal explained how the schools of thought engaged, quote, consciously and deliberately participating in discussions using what may be called philosophical methodology, unquote, which became more critical through greater attention to the categories of thought. And so one can see that along with the study of the necessary disciplines, it was important to pursue the study of philosophy, which is known as Anivikshiki, illustrated by special examination of these 16 categories, which include means of knowledge, objects of knowledge, validity or invalidity of arguments, determination of truth, and so on. Now, regarding the concerns of analytical aspects of these schools of thought, Matilal says, philosophy, it may be argued, is not just analysis and logic, epistemology and theory of meaning. It's also rational speculation and metaphysics, existentialism and phenomenology. However, it is arguable that studying certain classical Indian systems such as Advaita Vedanta or Mahayana Buddhism provides useful insights, even when philosophy is understood in the sense. So I'm trying to give this background. Now, what is this context of ineffability? Before that, we have to understand this background. Having said this, it is important to note that specific terms like truth, consciousness, knowledge, Brahman, being, existence, and infinite, and so on, in English are believed to be coterminous with the words Sat, Chit, Nityam, Anantam, Jnanam, etc. These terms are supposed to be translated, or they are translated in this English in this way. However, the insights latent in these terms are often curtailed because Western philosophy scholars do not envisage these insights. For instance, I'll give an example. For instance, Satya is generally understood and translated as truth. However, the original word, Sanskrit word, is Sat, refers to existence or being as the primary meaning, ultimately leading to mean truth, which is equally essential since existence or being is the only truth through an ontological definition in the text of Indian wisdom, where it is said, Saumya, O boy, O pupil, Sadeva, Sat Eva, that is existent itself, Idam Agra Asit, was there earlier. So Sat, or existence, has been there all along. So in this sentence means existence, being, as well as the only truth. Now, in due course of time, however, the meaning of truth appears to have become the meaning of the term in recurring expressions, and the term the meaning of existence has been much less dominant. So the term truth, thus the meaning of the truth is prevailed more, somewhat restricting the meaning of existence or being. Now, the discussion, however, that follows this particular idea in the original source explains the original Sanskrit source explains the other meaning as existence, being, consciousness, relating to the theory of existence, raising issues of philosophical discipline, in which terms like being, existence, and truth are not only interchangeable, but also suggest that they are varied possibilities which can be expressed through these terms in understanding the concept of existence in much broader sense. So, an observation from the Indian philosophical thinking may well be made here, pointing out that if everything is existence, being, and is the only truth, why don't we realize this immediately? Then Shankara, the important Indian thinker and of the Advaita school and a staunch logician himself, he clarifies, he says, no one says I don't exist. No, everybody says I exist. So no one is denying the truth of his or her existence. What is important to note here is that the truth must be verified. Now, ultimate reality or consciousness or truth or being or infinite, whatever interchangeable term that you use. Here, the truth is the singular factor that always exists. Now, the ineffability is related to the understanding of this reality. How do you understand truth? How do you explain truth? how do you express or verify? Now, Matilal refers to the challenge while reflecting on this subject. He says, quote, sometimes Indian philosophy is contrasted with Western philosophy, and immediately the phrase takes on a new shade of meaning. This is what he's meaning. This meaning, however, is by no means clear, unquote. So some people think that the Indian philosophy is concerned with the other world, while Western philosophy is concerned with this world, and therefore more rationalistic in its approach. The discourses in the Indian schools of thought emphasize moksha or liberation, but they do not lack reason. So identifying the critical constitutive, Matilal says, quote, a little investigation shows that each darshana holds that moksha or ultimate freedom is achieved based on our knowledge of the reality, knowledge of the world. And in other words, each darshana has engaged in constructing a metaphysical system and adhered to the belief that our knowledge of reality, as captured in its metaphysics, leads to the ultimate reality or truth, and could meet the epistemic need to provide an objective world perspective, unquote. So therefore, it is necessary to acquaint oneself with the idea of the world we live in to distinguish it from the world of ultimate reality, so that one wants to achieve for the sake of ultimate freedom. We may note here how it resonates with Kant, who reflected on the nature of knowledge of the world. The world is objective because it can be other than it seems to me. So the true question of objective knowledge is, how do I know that the world as it is? I can know the world as it seems, since that is merely knowledge of my present perceptions, memories, thoughts, and feelings. But can I have knowledge of the world that is not just knowledge of how it seems? So how do you verify? I mean, that is the question which is bothering thinkers from East and West. Radhakrishnan said that philosophy in India is essentially spiritual, or some people have even accused that it is religious. The Greek, the Persian, the Mughal, the French, and the English have by turn attempted to suppress her. Yet she has her head held high because she has fought for truth and dharma. Now, it is crucial in this context to know about dharma, but we can come back to that later on. The question then is, following the path of righteousness and justice, if that is the goal, if that is not impossible to live a balanced life, why would one transcend this world instead of ultimate reality? Or world is painful. Many disciplines begin with an inquiry into the nature of painful world. Sankhya says dukkhatraya abhighata, by being crushed by threefold pain. Then, of course, Buddhism talks of pain. Nyaya of Gautam also starts its sutra with saying that since the world is painful, etc. So it is crucial to get freedom from pain and achieve that which would forever transform an individual's life. How can this true of the reality, the Brahman realization, it is described as, be understood, and freedom or liberation is not an object but a state of consciousness. What kind of expression will describe this phenomenon? Now, Advaita Vedanta uses the method of neti, that claims that it is not so, it is not so. And this accounts for the theory of ineffability. Why is it saying neti, not this? Matilal believed that the ineffable theory is philosophically insightful for understanding ultimate reality. He said, quote, the ineffability doctrine means that one, the ultimate reality is ineffable. Two, the mystical experience in which the ultimate reality is supposed to be revealed is also beyond words, unquote. Now, in this context, he renders an example from the Taittiriya Upanishad, where it is said that this reality, from the Isha Upanishad, I think, yes, where it is said that this moves and moves not, that ejati tanna ejati. It moves and moves not. That is, that Brahman moves and moves not, whatever. Now, in this and also from Nagarjuna, where Nagarjuna tells the pupil, not a word was answered, O Master, to Buddha, and yet all the disciples were refreshed by your speech, etc. So that means even when Buddha kept quiet, silent, the pupil understood what he said. So in Isha Upanishad also he says that there is, I mean, Taittiriya Upanishad is where the mind goes uh, and comes back without knowing it. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasa. The mind goes to that point of Sat or Satya, but the mind cannot comprehend that knowledge of Brahman and comes back. Now, in both these expressions, there is an affirmation of an unmediated experience. And Matilal affirms, quote, in both these passages, the authors insist that the peak experience in Brahman realization or ultimate reality is something that cannot be put into words. It is too deep for words because of the nature of reality. Now, this is also known as Sakshat Anubhava because it is unmediated experience. Nothing comes in between the person who tries to realize and the goal. I'll try to explain it. Now, to explain further, Matilal refers to Wittgenstein's ladder analogy. He clarifies that the concept of ineffability of the Judeo-Christian tradition is not what Wittgenstein meant in his Tractatus, according to which philosophical sentences do not say anything but only signify what cannot be said. Wittgenstein explained the ladder analogy this way, quote, my propositions serve as elucidations in the following way. Anyone who understands me even eventually recognizes them as nonsensical when he has used them as steps to climb up beyond. He must, so to speak, throw away the ladder after climbing it, unquote, in Tractatus. Now, if we reflect on Wittgenstein's statement that philosophical sentences signify what cannot be said, then we will see how Indian darshanikas resort to the ineffability theory. They use a method, as Matilal explains, quote, via negative. That is, I already said, neti. Now, this method is familiar to Western theologians as the negative theology, according to which it is believed that although there is God, nothing affirmative can be said about its nature. In the Indian tradition, this method is as old as Yajnavalkya of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the method of neti neti. Now, interestingly, an objection to this method will enable us to see the other dimension which can give us the expected result. Negation is usually understood as the opposite of affirmation. It is generally presumed that there cannot be any bare negation, sampurna abhava. Complete negation is not possible. Whenever anything is denied, some positive ground of denial is assumed. This is quote from the premise. It is sometimes argued that each denial involves us in some form of commitment or positive presupposition. The presupposition may be in the form of assuring the existence of subject of the denial. For example, the existence of the subject is this is not a pot, it says. The Buddhist, unquote, the Buddhist logician Dignaga believed in the swalakshanas or the ultimate particulars that is beyond words and they are self-manifesting, swasamvedya, but inexpressible, anirdeshya. Now here we will see how the paradox, like this is paradox, it moves not. That means if God moves not. Suppose you say God instead of it, God moves not. Now the Achilles paradox in logic is an argument attributed to the 5th century BC Greek philosopher Zeno of Elea. Is primarily known through the works of Plato, Aristotle, and later commentators. Zeno devised the paradoxes to support his teacher Parmenides' philosophy of monism, which posits that despite our sensory experiences, reality is singular and unchanging. The paradoxes challenge the notion of plurality, the existence of many things like motion, space, time, by suggesting they lead to the logical contradictions. So in this context, we may reflect on how the nature of reality, as explained in Indian philosophy, could be explained with the help of one of Zeno's paradox. Zeno Zeno's argument rests on the presumption that Achilles, the hero, must first reach the point where the tortoise started, by which time the tortoise will have moved ahead, even if but a small distance, to another point, that is space point. By the time Achilles traverses the distance to the latter point, the tortoise would have moved ahead to another, and so on. There is another paradox which Zeno mentions in the arrow paradox. Zeno says that for a motion to occur, an object must change the position which it occupies. He gives an example. Hello? Can you hear? Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because
You
there
are
was some
audible.
sound.
Ah,
All
yeah.
right. Okay, in the arrow paradox, Zeno says that for a motion to occur, an object must change the position which it occupies. He gives an example of an arrow in flight. He states that at any one instant of time, the arrow is neither moving to where it is nor to where it is not. It cannot move to where it is not because no time elapses for it to move there. It cannot move to where it is because it is already there. In other words, no motion occurs at every instant of time, that is point of time. Now, suppose everything is motionless at every instant and time is entirely composed of instants. In that case, the motion is impossible. Matilal quotes from the Ishopanishad the verse to this exact expression, tat ejati, tat na ejati, which means it moves not. Now, despite many paradox theories, it must be reiterated that the idea that truth exists independently of conventional knowing, that has to be emphasized. Further, it says that one does not experience the truth of liberation or moksha through a theoretical study and analysis, but ultimately through a subjective experience. The theories are there only to signify. The staunch logician Shankara argues that reasoning cannot justify subjective experience. This is especially so because the reasoning is binary. The Neti Neti theory argues against any binary explanation. It attacks actually the binary explanation. And that specific experiences are incommunicable because we cannot understand and express what it means to go beyond binaries. So, in his book, In Contradiction, Graham Priest says that the putative solutions to the paradoxes betray a pattern that gives a strong evidence that the paradoxes cannot be solved. Graham, unquote, Graham mentions that according to Kant, thought has a natural tendency to issue in contradictions or antinomies whenever it seeks to apprehend the infinite. But Kant never penetrated to the discovery of what the antinomies really and positively mean. This is what I said when I said the Western philosophies can't envisage what is behind this. The true and positive meaning of the antinomies is that everything involves a coexistence of opposed elements, unquote. So the ineffability theory suggests that the ultimate reality exists independently of articulation by language and any eventual modification by language. Incidentally, I must also mention that absolute time and absolute space are not communicable like ultimate reality. Now, therefore, I mean, these are considered manifestation of consciousness. If you see in science, in the quantum mechanics, uh, the classical view of time and space would not hold good in the quantum world. Now, for instance, whatever was, or else the measurement of, for example, space, if you apply the, you can apply the Euclidean geometry in, here in this world, but in the cosmic world, you will have the Romanian geometry because the conditions are different, and that will be not be explainable, or one will not understand unless one goes to that origin or that source. Now, for instance, what is the definition of time? If time is now, there is all these things, all these issues, consciousness, existence, concept of time, space, etc. These are also have been not only discussed, also there are differences of opinion. Now, if you say that time is intuitional something, then with that intuitional time, you have made time as a tool, as a yardstick of measurement. In E is equal to mc square, where you would have time also as a part of you will include time also as a yardstick to measure the very nature of quanta or particle uh, itself has the dual nature, which was very difficult for us. I can say I am short and tall. I can't say I am short and tall. I am either short or tall. But if you say this quanta or the particle or the subatomic particle has can be explained both as wave as well as uh, particle, uh, that becomes very difficult to understand. So ineffability is here will a theory of ineffability will here help you to gauge, if not understand completely, why it will. When science can say how it happens, why it happens, science doesn't explain. So there's a lot of things which we could include in the paper, but I was afraid that I just have 30 minutes, and so therefore I have not included all these uh, kind of concepts. But that's very interesting to see that how uh, a possibility of definition becomes a complicated, a very problematic when you try to define time or space or truth or consciousness, etc. So philosophy and science, in both these arena, there is this difficulty of not to be able to communicate certain behavior, certain things, and not to be able to explain as to what this happens, because mind is necessarily binary, and the binary reasoning does not help understand uh, many of these aspects. So I would rather say that the horizon of ineffability theory is very vast, and due to time construction, the all other dimensions could not be discussed here. So thank you, Shipra.
Thank you, ma'am.
I,
Thank you so
I
much. And
strictly follow the time.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And for the very first time, I'm curious about Matilal, and I trust many people would not have read him um, in India. Or so. Thank you so much, ma'am. And we
Uh,
have many renowned and
uh,
special philosophers along with us, mainly R.P. Singh sir, Chandra sir, Prashant sir, Alok Tandon sir. So, sir,
sure, sure,
I request you to start the discussion.
Okay, should I
sure,
start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you,
sure.
thank you. It's very fascinating presentation. And very briefly, I'm audible to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
So, uh, very informative also. And in fact, one of my colleague in the Center for Historical Studies, he did his PhD under B.K. Matilal, second PhD from, uh, I think, Oxford, yeah. And some other
Wonderful.
works were available to me. One of my colleague, Professor K. Srinivas, wrote a full book on A.K. Matilal. And some of the
Uh-huh.
thesis also I had opportunity to evaluate
Uh,
the works of B.K. Matilal. So two basic problems I have always encountered in his writings. One, as you have very much pointed out, is the terms, because he has a Western audience,
yeah,
students and research scholars and others, and
yes.
so he had to communicate with them the
Hmm.
terminologies which we have in Indian philosophy, and
Yeah.
it goes beyond any kind of translating ability in any other language except Sanskrit. Because the language is very metaphoric, sometimes very suggestive, quite often contradictory. So one needs to go into the elaborate analysis of it, something like a Bhashyakara, to spell out the very meaning of it. Even the simple terms like yoga, bhakti, prama, this also cannot be translated in English, except then all that stuff. So this problem he always encountered, but he looked for something which is very, maybe the nearest cognate of it, so that it can be, shared at least, if not completely translated. And you also pointed out this kind of an issue. Now, one thing which really bothers me about when we try to compare Indian philosophy with Western philosophy, let's accept that the basic fundamental issues are the same. The only thing is that the emphasis has been put on the metaphysical and ontological side in Indian philosophy, whereas on epistemological and cognitive side in the Western philosophy. Because, and this is the issue which started with Plato himself, that you must define it. And point out the universals, the problem of the universals, and everything else. And this kind of, act of philosophizing persisted in the West. And also the dichotomizing ability which Aristotle had introduced, that philosophy begins by dichotomizing it. Now, these ingredients are not so profoundly found in Indian philosophy. Rather, here we find some kind of integrationist approach is there, where concepts under certain circumstances, they pass into one another. They evolve in such a way that they pass into another such concepts. And there are a number of such examples where we find that we begin with the Vyavharik Satta, we go to Pradibhasik, and end up with Paramarthik. The difference is only of the degrees, not of the kinds. Because the experience gets elevated, and in the process of getting elevated, some of the features are dropped and certain other features are retained at the higher stage. So the rupture aspect is not there. But this is at the metaphysical level and the ontological level, so to speak. But in the West, it's the predominantly epistemological phase. Well, because if it is not epistemologically cognizable, then metaphysically you cannot assert it. This is what the positivists and the contemporary philosophers, they all have presented it. This is one thing which I wanted to place before you. And the second thing is that I think it just slipped in the mind. So about this in the West, when modernity came up and further developments started taking place, we found that they tried to repudiate the tradition. So there was no healthy dialogue between tradition and modernity in the West. Whereas in India, tradition is not all the time bad. Most of its aspects have been incorporated in modernity and different phases of modernity. And of course, some of the things were dropped also. K.C. Bhattacharya also did it. And while talking about his subjectivity, a subject as freedom and all that stuff. So because he took out various features which have the tendency to survive even in contemporary stages of life and thinking. And also there are certain things which are really not so important and they can be dropped also, but not at all. In the West, they repudiated the whole of tradition because they wanted to begin afresh, a de novo kind of a thing. So this rupture in the West and the students who are trained in that direction, that is something which is to be recognized, and this is how I feel about it. So I think these are the two observations that I have. Thank you.
Yeah, very well said. In the Indian context, it is metaphysical, but I also try to point out how that that Matilal explained that the schools of thought, consciously and deliberately participating in discussions on this methodology, they have talked about the categories of thought. They have talked about the validity and invalidity of arguments. So, though despite the metaphysical stand that they take, ultimately to reality, because that is related to the concept of consciousness. And as you know, whether it is in metaphysics or it is in science, till today, because I have attended consciousness conferences in Arizona and other places, till today, the concept of consciousness is very ineffable. It is very difficult to point out as to what is a consciousness. So therefore, the problem of how would you try to understand something which is non-binary? How would you try to see? That is why Shankara says tarkaha apratishthanaat. By he being himself experiencing a sakshat anubhava, Shankara has categorically said that your logic will not stand there, because logic is binary. Reasoning is binary. So how do you try to explain something which is beyond the binary? And that is why I also pointed out, as you said, yes, ontological in the Western, in the Western context also. When you come to quantum mechanics, it becomes something which is binary, can't explain the behavior of this. So the problem exists, problem continues, both at the metaphysical level as well as the level of material level and the level of science. So I think this that is not solved. But how it is, like for example, there are a lot of in logic, there are a lot of paradoxical theories of paradox, and then all those, if you I just quoted one or two to say that ultimately that problem of communication, it doesn't get solved by it. And if you cannot, that's the way I quoted Graham again. Graham, a priest, saying that this is not possible to solve. It doesn't get solved at all. Yes. Anybody else? So I explain to you, but this is very interesting topic, and I think we still will have to go a long way to it. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Chandra sir, we need your feedback or observation.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this. I was really looking forward to this. नमस्कार मीरा जी. नमस्कार मीरा जी.
आप आए ही, मैंने कहा आप आए ही नहीं, क्या है बात, क्या है, आपको
मैं बहुत ध्यान से सुन रहा था, और मेरी ये अपेक्षा थी कि जैसा आपने कहा कि ये बात सही है कि ये पाश्चात्य भारतीय का तो चलता ही रहता है, उसको छोड़ ही देना चाहिए. इसलिए विटगेनस्टाइन और बाकी सब लोगों को कांट ने क्या कहा इन संदर्भों में, उसको अगर हम छोड़ भी दें, और साथ ही साथ क्योंकि जो क्वांटम मैकेनिक्स है वो भी फिलॉसफी नहीं है, उसको भी अगर छोड़ दें, तो मुझे लगता है कि एक रोचक प्रश्न जो लगता है, जो मीरा जी ने, क्योंकि मतीलाल को अभी हाल में और अच्छी तरह से पढ़ा होगा, तो एक तो ये बात लगती है कि जब हम शब्दों का प्रयोग कर रहे हैं, तो अव्यक्तव्यम, अनिर्वचनीय, कल्पना, अपोढ़म, इस प्रकार से जब हम चर्चा कर रहे हैं, तो इनएफेबल को हम कहाँ पर लेकर चलेंगे. और दूसरी बात मुझे ये लगती है कि जो लगातार जो एग्जाम्पल्स आप ले रही थी, वो और मतीलाल ने भी इन एसेज में लिया है, जो पैराडॉक्सेस ऑफ इनएफेबिलिटी लिया है, जिस पर प्रियंबदा सरकार की किताब भी है, उन सब के अंतर्गत उन्होंने ज्यादातर वेदांत के लिए हैं. लेकिन ये वाली बात हम लोग को याद ही रहती है कि मतीलाल का अपना आग्रह ज्यादा न्याय के प्रति था, और न्याय की जो पोजीशन थी वो ये थी कि whatever is nameable is knowable, और वहां पर भी जो ज्ञान में प्रत्यक्ष की परिभाषा है, तो इंद्रियार्थसन्निकर्षम ज्ञानम के साथ ही साथ जो ज्यादा प्रभावकारी उनकी परिभाषा है वो भी साक्षात्कारित्वम है, अ डायरेक्ट नॉलेज एज इट वर ऑफ रियलिटी एज इट वर। तो जो नॉलेज है वो अपने आप में डायरेक्ट है, और वही मैं क्योंकि कांट पे बहुत सारा काम कर रहा था, वहां पे इंट्यूटिव उसको कहा जाता है, इंट्यूशन के रेसेंस, पर उसको छोड़ दें क्योंकि वो खामखा का विवाद हो जाएगा। तो अपने आप में सवाल ये है कि कौन सा ज्ञान है जो अपने आप में इनएफेबल है। तो न्यायिकों के अनुसार तो कोई भी ऐसा ज्ञान नहीं होगा, और क्योंकि whatever is knowable is nameable, whatever is nameable is knowable, और उनकी तत्वमीमांसा में परमाणु, अणु इत्यादि इन सब के बारे में हम सभी कुछ ज्ञान भी कर सकते हैं और उसको अभिव्यक्त भी कर सकते हैं। जब हम वेदांतियों के संदर्भ में आते हैं तो भी अनिर्वचनीयता के दो सामान्य अर्थ बच्चों को भी हम लोग बता देते हैं कि माया अनिर्वचनीय इसलिए है क्योंकि वो भूत, भविष्य, वर्तमान तीनों में अस्तित्ववान नहीं है, इसलिए वो अनिर्वचनीय है। और ब्रह्म इसलिए अनिर्वचनीय है क्योंकि वो सत असत विलक्षण है, उसके ऊपर कोई कैटेगरी अप्लाई नहीं होती। तो अनिर्वचनीयता के भी दो अलग अलग कारण हैं जिनके के कारण माया को असत सदसत विलक्षण कहा गया और ब्रह्म को सदसत विलक्षण कहा गया। तो अब हम जब चर्चा कर रहे हैं इस समय, जहां पर ये दो प्रधान मल्ल एक दूसरे के सामने खड़े हैं, न्यायिक और वेदांती, और उनमें से भी जो ज्यादा लोकप्रिय हैं अद्वैत वेदांती, तो वहां पर ये देखना पड़ेगा कि इनएफेबल के लिए क्या बात निकलती है, इनएफेबल से क्या ये बात निकलेगी। और मुझे जहां तक मैंने पढ़ा तो मुझे लगा कि मतीलाल इस बात पर बल दे रहे हैं कि इनएफेबल होने के बावजूद भी वो अपने आप में संज्ञानात्मक होगा, दो इट इज इनएफेबल येट इट वुड बी कॉग्निटिव। और जैसा कि लोग बात जब हम विलियम जेम्स को पढ़ रहे थे तो वहां पर हम लोगों ने उनके मिस्टिक एक्सपीरियंस के बारे में भी पढ़ा था। तो अब ये देखना है कि इनएफेबल का मतलब क्या है इनएफेबल। और बाइनरी नॉन बाइनरी की तो बात हम लोग को पता ही है कि भाई आज से 50 साल पहले, 100 साल पहले से हम लोग को पता ही है कि लॉजिक, मल्टी वैल्यूड लॉजिकल सिस्टम्स हैं, फाजी लॉजिक सिस्टम्स हैं, हम सब लोगों ने पढ़े भी और उनके बारे में बहुत सारी चर्चाएं हुई, और उनके तो वो बात तो नहीं है यहाँ पे। यहाँ बात यह है कि अभिव्यक्ति के संदर्भ में किस प्रकार से अभिव्यंजित किया जा सकता है या नहीं किया जा सकता, किस चीज को। तो न्यायिकों के अनुसार तो ये है कि कुछ भी ऐसा नहीं है जो अज्ञेय है, और कुछ भी ऐसा नहीं है जो संज्ञेय नहीं है, और जो भी ज्ञेय है वो संज्ञेय है, और जो संज्ञेय है वो ज्ञेय है। और वेदांतियों के संदर्भ में यहाँ पर ये लगता है कि माया और ब्रह्म के बारे में दो अलग अलग प्रकार से उनकी अभिधेयता का भी प्रश्न है और उनकी संज्ञेयता का भी प्रश्न है, और दोनों ही के अनिर्वचनीयता के अलग अलग कारण दिए गए हैं। तो मुझे लगता है कि ये हमारा वास्तविक संदर्भ है जिसमें हम चर्चा करें। तीसरा जो इनका मल्ल है वो है आपका बौद्ध। जो बौद्ध ये कह रहे हैं कि जिनमें से एक बौद्ध कह रहे हैं, क्योंकि बौद्धों की भी अलग अलग परंपराएं हैं, उनमें से एक बौद्ध परंपरा ये कह रही है कि चीजों का कोई नित्य स्वभाव नहीं होता, और इसलिए फिर किसी एक दृष्टि के ऊपर आग्रह अपने आप में हठधर्मिता का प्रतीक है, और इसलिए वो नागार्जुन की मूल माध्यमिक कारिका में सर्वदृष्टि प्रहाणाय की बात होती है। वहां पर भी लेकिन अवक्तव्यम नहीं है। और अगर आप वैसे देखना चाहें तो मौन, जहां पर आपको किसी ने दबा दिया हो, और ये वाली बात तो मुझे लगता है कि मीरा जी हम सब फेमिनिस्ट की तरह से ये बात जानती ही हैं कि साइलेंसिंग कई तरीके से होती है। आपकी बात का जवाब न दिया जाए, आपकी प्रतिरोध के स्वर को सुना ना जाए, आपकी बात को इंटरप्ट कर दिया जाए, तो वहां पर भी एक प्रकार का साइलेंसिंग है, एक प्रकार का मौन है, जहां पर कि आप कहते हैं कि क्योंकि कैटेगरीज अप्लाई ही नहीं हो सकती इसलिए आप मौन है वहां पर। और एक यहाँ पर है कि हम उसको अभिव्यक्ति नहीं कर सकते, और आपको सभी को पता है यहाँ पर भी। और मुझे लग रहा था कि आज जरूर मीरा इस बात को मेंशन करेंगी कि जब हम लोग फेमिनिस्ट डिस्कशंस करते हैं तो उनमें सबसे पहले खासतौर से सेम सेक्स लव के बारे में जब चर्चा होती थी तो लगातार ये कहता था द प्रॉब्लम दैट हैज नो नेम। तो वो भी एक प्रकार की इनएफेबिलिटी है, पर वो सभी एक प्रकार की सामाजिक संदर्भों के अंतर्गत है। और जहां पर मतीलाल चर्चा कर रहे हैं तो वहां पर मुझे लगता है कि ये चर्चा वही चर्चा है जो न्यायिकों और वेदांतियों के संदर्भ में रखी गई, और जाहिर है मतीलाल न्यायिकों के पक्ष में खड़े होंगे, ऐसा मुझे लगता है। अब मैं सोचता हूँ कि क्योंकि आपने अभी हाल में उनको और अच्छी तरह से पढ़ा होगा, मैंने मतीलाल को पढ़ा था खासतौर से रिलीजन के संदर्भ में और परसेप्शन पे उनकी किताब पर, और उनके ऊपर काफी कमेंट करा था। तो लेकिन आप मैं सोचता हूँ कि जो बातें मैं सोच रहा था उनके बारे में एक बार फिर आप कुछ हम लोगों को।
ये आपने बहुत अच्छा कहा, आपने बहुत अच्छा कहा, पर आपके जैसे चुस्त हिंदी मेरी नहीं है, इसलिए आई विल नॉट ट्राई माय हिंदी so that it will be
Right. No,
ineffable.
but you have been so strongly opposed to the non-availability in English and the others, because I don't believe that.
No,
So
no,
I
कोई
thought
बात
that let me
नहीं,
try my Hindi.
नहीं नहीं, बहुत बहुत अच्छी हिंदी है। I love that हिंदी because हमें वहाँ पे कर्नाटक में इतनी अच्छी हिंदी सुनने को नहीं मिलती। So मैं जब yes, that is true. And so therefore, but my Hindi is so bad, so I would not try that. ये just for colloquial ठीक है। फिर बंगाली हिंदी बोले तो आपको मालूम है कैसा होता है। तो तो आपने आधा उत्तर उसमें दे दिया। आपके जो प्रश्न हैं, you have already answered it. The ineffability is an expression where you know, when the Nayayika says that it is abhidheyatum, prameyatum, abhidheyatum, तो वहां पे एक उनकी definition, in that definition they also have earlier clarified their stand that there is something uniqueness, which is asadharana dharma. So when you this define lakshana has to be asadharana dharma lakshana. ठीक है, तो अगर वो if that is asadharana, if that is extraordinary, like for example you are familiar with Nyaya Darshana, so it says if this go has the sling that is that it has, which the buffalo doesn't have, the camel doesn't have, the other animals doesn't have, so you characterize that object with the lakshana. So just not naming and defining, definition needs a lakshana. I mean, definition needs an asadharana dharma. And that is why now, if you try to find out what that's what Matilal is trying to say, even why I said quoted Wittgenstein is these are things which signify, not define. So there is a significant. You just signified it because you signify. Why? Because you cannot define it. And therefore, now, for example, when you talk about the pratyaksha, now you tell me when you see the star in the sky, and between star and you have nothing else. Then is it pratyaksha, the star that you see in the sky? Do you apply pratyaksha there? Because it is indriya artha sannikarshya jnana. And later Seshwara Nayayikas have added in Atma Indriya, Indriya Mana, etc. So Atma also has been added. Okay, added. But do I see when I see the nakshatra, when I see the star in the sky, do I have the knowledge of pratyaksha? No, I don't have. Why? Because only the light reaches me. The star has moved away. And therefore, I was saying that in the context of when you see in the cosmic world, the measure that applies in the cosmic world, in the quantum world, does not apply in the Newton's world or the Euclidean's world. And therefore, the measure has, Graham Priest says that if your theory is not applying, you have to leave the theory and go to another construction of another theory. So I do not see the Nayayika definition of pratyaksha does not apply when I see the star. So nakshatra darshana, with the perception of nakshatra, I am not getting the pratyaksha because this is what is happening. And then these people did not have that they would have. So now the second one which you said, which said that yes, unmediated sakshatkara becomes when there is nothing. Why Shankara as a staunch logician who would have supported the should have supported the Naiyayikas. He says no. Why? Because there is something mediated. It is mediated knowledge, and in unmediated knowledge, now for example, it says, Dr. Rakesh, how do you prove you exist? I can't. You can't prove. I can't prove, because Dr. Rakesh Chandra will be the subject who experiences his own existence, and he alone can justify that he exists. I cannot write. I can write thesis. Dr. Rakesh appears like that. He seems to me like that. He's a good scholar like that, and he's. I've seen him moving here and there, but it doesn't tell me that you exist, because so many things move, so many things can reach from one place to another, but the subjective experience that you alone have about your existence is the asadharana dharma, is the particular experience which is unmediated.
Yeah.
And therefore I can say that, yeah.
Professor Chakravorty, I just wanted you to attend to this thing. You are bringing in many important philosophical discussions regarding our knowledge of the external world, of proximate objects, of medium-sized objects or distant objects. And the fact is that even if something is actually very close to me right now, even for that, actually, cannot be absolutely sure if you have a very strong definition of surety. Not that it's only in the case of the stars, because for the Kshanabhangavad, even the things that we have, which are immediate to us, are also Kshanabhangur, so they might have also moved away by the time we have apprehended. That's another question. So also this question about how do I know myself and the others? I was only trying to just draw your attention and seeking clarification that when we talk about ineffability and effability, this cannot be confused with definitiveness of knowing and non-definitiveness of knowing. If something can be named by itself, it does not automatically mean that what I have named is completely known by me definitely. That's a further question. Ineffability and effability are only questions about whether that can be described or not. That which is being described is permanent or not is another question. That which is, whether it is known with definitiveness or not is another. That it is known by experience or not is another. That which is, it is known by mystic experience or not is another. And as philosophers, I think the Indian philosophical questions, especially the Anviksha tradition of the Naiyayiks, to which Matilal belongs, he is very careful. If you look at his book on perception, and if you look at every section of that, if you look at his essays on realism and the others, he's very careful. So ineffability does not, from ineffability, you can't jump to other epistemic categories of definitiveness, necessity, absolute certainty. Because whatever is known, so that is why मुझे लगता है कि हमें ये बात बहुत स्पष्ट करनी पड़ेगी कि क्या व्यक्तता अव्यक्तता, जैसे इसीलिए मैंने ये उदाहरण दिया कि माया की अनिर्वचनीयता, ब्रह्म की अनिर्वचनीयता अलग है। अव्यक्त कोई बात बच्चा नहीं कह पा रहा है क्योंकि उसको बोलना नहीं आता है, वो एक बात है। एक चीज क्योंकि वो बोली नहीं जा सकती क्योंकि उसके पास कैटेगरीज उसके ऊपर नहीं अप्लाई होती, या उस पे परमानेंट कैटेगरीज, दिस वुड डिपेंड अपॉन मोर केयरफुल इन्वेस्टिगेशन, एंड दैट इज वेयर वी हैव टू सी कि इनएफिबिलिटी का क्या मायने। दूसरी बात एक और जो मैं आपको ध्यान दिलाऊं, जो आप बार बार कोट कर रही हैं और जिसको जरा ध्यान में रखना चाहिए, विटगेनस्टाइन को कोट जब करते हैं, और प्रेमवदा की किताब में भी ये बात है, वो ट्रैक्टेटस का हिस्सा है, और वो सही बात है कि ट्रैक्टेटस का हिस्सा वो मिस्टिक से कंपैरिजन वो अद्वैतियों को सूट करता है, पर जो लेटर विटगेनस्टाइन है, वो लेटर विटगेनस्टाइन के अंदर का कोई मिस्टिसिज्म नहीं है और उसके अंदर कोई अव्यक्तता नहीं है, और वो न्यायिकों को भी सूट कर सकता है। इस वजह से या तो वो हम कंपैरिजन करने जाएं और जिसके अंदर हम क्योंकि 30 साल पढ़ चुके हैं तो हम उसको और डिटेल में ले सकते हैं, और या जैसे हम आपकी बात मान लें कि भाई नहीं, वेस्टर्न कैटेगरीज नहीं अप्लाई होती इंडियन पे और इंडियन लोग वेस्टर्न को नहीं समझते और वेस्टर्न लोग बहुत बेवकूफ होते हैं, तो वो मान लेते हैं और ये तो उसको छोड़ देते हैं। तो हम इसी वजह से कह रहे हैं कि आप इसको
No, I didn't say that at all, that they are बेवकूफ हैं, ऐसे मैंने नहीं कहा। मैंने I have said that there are insights which are not even Max Muller himself said, even others also, Max
Muller knew very little about Indian, both Western and Indian philosophy.
No. I have taken your
Anyway,
premise.
I'm discounting that. Please, let's not go on that way. Let's concentrate on ineffability.
See, when we are discussing Nyayika, you suddenly jump to another, then suddenly jump to this. If we are discussing the Nyayika platform, if we are discussing Nyayika concept, then let us ask the Nyayikas as to what they say as communicable and not communicable. And that is why I asked that this is what is the what is going to happen. It doesn't mean that the expressions will always remain so, because that is a long time ago it has happened. Now you have expressions of through AI. You have so many expressions. You might say so many other things, but it doesn't mean that that becomes the Bible. I'm not saying that. Because I have, and on Wittgenstein, I have quoted Matilal. It is Matilal who gave this example. I am not giving this example. So I said, if you listen to, I said, quote, unquote, quote, unquote. I said, Matilal has given this example of Wittgenstein of ladder and analogy. And that is Matilal's quote. I have not tried to quote. What Matilal has said, I have tried to say. So ineffability, why it is ineffability is, that is why what we were trying to is that something may appear something like that, and I'm not getting. That is what I said. When I say, you said set aside, can't set aside. अब सब लोगों को set aside करे तो आप, how would you know this? Now Kant says the same thing. Now this is phenomenon and then this is phenomenon, and how would I know that I am in this world? This even you use the word Maya. Okay, I am in the Maya world of Maya. How would I know I am in the world of Maya? I would not know. Unless I come out of the world of Maya, I would not know that this is the world of Maya. And I will describe, or I will define the world having the Maya as a tool. I will not come out of it. How do you come out of the structure and define? So how can you take the definition for granted? These are contested. Once again, all these philosophical issues, or even the issues in the quantum world, they are all contention issues. You have logical paradoxes. How many variations are there of the logical? You have liar's logic. There's so many. We can just take each one and apply and try to see. That is not the point. The point is that where it's a theoretical experience, then okay, by theoretical experience you cannot have. I exist because I think. If like Descartes will say, I think and therefore I exist. So therefore, if that is to be done, then how do you? It becomes totally subjective, and the subjective experience, it is very difficult to access. So therefore, anybody else, Shipra?
Thank you, ma'am. Alok sir, yeah, Prashant sir.
Thank you, Dr. Chakravorty. I hope I'm audible, Shipraji.
Yes.
I was with you up to the whole lecture, but after the lecture, as a follow-up, when the discussion comes, I got a little bit confused. Because you are taking the things here from here and there, like you took the example of looking at the stars when the stars are moving away. Well, that is something which does not fit here. Because look at the point. When you talk about Indriyat Sannikarsh, nobody claims that actually the Sannikarsh of the Indriya is with the object. Rather, of the object with that particular attribute which connects with the visual sensory organ. So, whether the star moves away or not, that's a different question. The point is that the image is there, which is being connected to my senses. So this argument at least does not apply there. Number one. Number two, when you are talking about B.K. Matilal's position on ineffability, you cannot stop just like that unless and until you also mention the analogical preferences he talks about. So let's say we are talking about the avyaktani or the ineffable state of the Brahma. Shankaracharya does not stop here. He takes a lot of analogies and examples from the common sense example where he uses, well, it's just like moving away from the Jagrit and then to Swapna and then to Sushupti and then to Turiya. He takes the example of the Mayavi, and he takes a lot of other examples so that even a realist can comprehend what is ineffable. And don't you think this is precisely what a philosopher is supposed to do? Because just waving it away like a Vittani or a Nirvachaniya or ineffable takes it out of the boundary of philosophies. So either we accept the limitation of knowledge or we try to express it by some means or the others. So I found that it was very enriching discussion, but the conclusory part was a little bit misguided. So I would just like to have your remarks on this. Thank you, ma'am.
I was, Mr. Tandon, you said
Thank you,
Dr.
sir.
Tandon. Tandon. You
Yeah.
said Alok Tandon.
Alok, sir? Yeah.
So I would like
Yeah.
to.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Can you
Yes, sir.
hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can
Yes, sir.
you?
No, I would rather.
Oh, I have not read Matilal, and so I cannot offer much on this issue. But after
Excuse me.
hearing the
Excuse me.
discussion, I have come to some sort of my understanding that this whole idea of having an experience which is neither communicable nor verifiable is a very problematic thing, because how can then you be sure about the experience itself? And later on there are many questions about its absoluteness, relativeness, and all these things. Even after going through this experience, one realist may say that you are having some sort of hallucinations. It is nothing to do with the cosmic ultimate reality. So how to establish all this? This is always has been a problem with Vedantins, I think, and a Nyaya position might have been better. But if a Nyaya position also accepts that, then I think this comparison with your own comparison with the science is very, very problematic. Because in science, when, as Prashant pointed out, that this is a problem of measurement. If a star moves away, but what he is sending some light years before is we can understand. It's like same is in the particle physics also. We have got limitations of measurement about the position of the of the particles, but because of their movement. But it does not mean that they are communicating anything, and they are verifiable. But that is not any type of the problem is of measurement. It is not a problem of some sort of ultimate reality or consciousness working in there. So this sort of parallel drawn between the quantum physics and the Vedantins, I think this is a very fashionable idea, but I find it very, very problematic because it does not fit into what we understand by the modern science. Thank you.
Thank you,
No,
sir. Thank you.
I'm sorry. प्रशांत के को जवाब देना था शिप्रा.
Yes,
First I will tell Prashant.
Yes,
Now
ma'am.
he
Yes.
says, so now you go to the Nyaya Sutra, Prashant, and then see what he says, whether he says that it is Indriya Artha Sannikarsha is image, or Indriya Artha Sannikarsha. Artha means object. Artha does not mean the image of the object. So if you can't change the term that the Nayayikas, the logicians use. So the Indriyas, the sensory organs, are connected with the Artha, the object, and then there is the whatever the result is produced. Now, therefore, I am saying it is whether it is connected with the Artha. If the object is not connected with the sense organs, then how can, according to their own definition, how can there be any knowledge that can be produced, or that knowledge will be Brahma, or that knowledge will be the wrong knowledge, and therefore that cannot be accepted in the cosmic world. Now, confusion that you say that if you do not know the other point that you say, I mean, I just forgot about what you try to say, that you are confused about after listening to the discussion. I don't know what is the point of confusion there, because when something is observed and something is to be known, and that something which is known has to be described, then you will naturally follow a philosophical methodology. So what is that methodology that you follow to describe? And I had earlier answered to Professor Chandra about that there has to be a particular way to define, and that is the characteristic, the extraordinary characteristic with which you define. Now, when you say truth, consciousness, etc., what is the extraordinary characteristic with which you can define it? You said you pointed out that Shankara talks of analogy. Those does those analogy. I brought the analogy by of Zeno. I brought the analogy of the Aristotle. Do they define the consciousness in the way in the way that you can get a definition? So something, unless you know something, how would you talk about it? So you have to know something. To know something, you have to when after you know, then only you can describe or you can define. So therefore, how is the knowledge possible if this is what happens? If you cannot reach the object at all, then knowledge is certainly not possible. And therefore, that is why the categories that the Vaisheshikas or the Sankhya schools, etc., talk about, they are clear cut on the definition as to that these has to be the yardstick on which you measure, and then you can describe an object. That is why now when you come to Professor Tandon has raised it now, unless
no,
you know
ma'am,
the
don't jump, ma'am. The point has not been clarified yet. You are oversimplifying the things. Yes.
Yeah.
Earth is not the object. I'm just coming to the first query. Forget about the second one. Earth is not the object.
Then what?
No. In the epistemic realm, it is the earth which validates our knowledge of the object. Isn't it, ma'am?
What is art? Are Baba, I have been the department head of the Sanskrit. You are calling me now. Now, Pada, you have heard
of course, ma'am. I do respect that.
Pada Padartha Sambandha is Pada is word and Artha is the object. So the Pada Padartha Sambandha of Nayayikas, you should go and read that. So Artha is not
is saying something. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, मीरा जी, बहुत सारी अच्छी बातें होती हैं और हम लोग क्योंकि सामने नहीं होते तो वो क्लियर नहीं हो पाती। आप ये बात कह रही हैं, आप ये बात ठीक कह रही हैं कि न्यायिकों में पद और अर्थ में के अलावा और कोई तीसरी चीज है ही नहीं, शब्द है और सीधे ऑब्जेक्ट है, तो वो मीडिएटिंग मीनिंग्स वैसी चीजें ऐसे कही भी है, वो आप ठीक कह रही हैं। लेकिन एक तो मुझे लग रहा है बराबर हमें थोड़ी क्लैरिटी की जरूरत ये है कि इनएफेबल है और उसके एग्जाम्पल के रूप में ये तारे और चांद ये नहीं ठीक से आ पा रहे हैं, क्योंकि अगर आप एक मिनट सुन लीजिए। नहीं, मैं सिर्फ ये बात कह रहा हूँ कि अगर हम तारों का ज्ञान दावे से नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि वो इस समय उपलब्ध नहीं है, खत्म हो चुके हैं, तो वो तो ज्ञान भी नहीं है और वो एफेबल भी नहीं है ना? इनएफेबिलिटी नहीं,
आप जो कह रहे, मैं जो कह रही हूँ वो आप कह रहे हैं, बिल्कुल ठीक।
नहीं, मैं सिर्फ ये बात की प्रॉब्लम वहां पे है जहां पर ज्ञान है और उसको व्यक्त नहीं कर पा रहे हैं।
हाँ, तो ये
आप जो एग्जांपल ले रही थी तारे इत्यादि के, तो वहां पे तो ज्ञान भी नहीं है ना, क्योंकि आप ये कह रहे हैं कि the star has gone away, so there is no knowledge.
Exactly.
So the problem is, wait a minute. So the problem is, so there is neither knowledge and nor its expression. Now the question, wait a minute. The question primarily is, because if you're looking at the Vedantis, the question is that there is a case of knowledge which is not expressible. So cases of cognition and knowledge not being expressible is the principal problem. ऐसी चीज जिसको हम जानते नहीं है, जिसके बारे में कह नहीं सकते, वो तो अलग इशू हो गया। तो वो एग्जांपल्स यहाँ पे लाके कंफ्यूज नहीं करना चाहिए। और
नहीं
इसीलिए
नहीं वो बात
क्वांटम
नहीं,
मैकेनिक्स वगैरह के एग्जाम्पल बिल्कुल मत लाइए, क्योंकि वो बिल्कुल
नहीं
गलत
नहीं
हैं। और अगर आप सामने
नहीं
होंगी तो मैं
नहीं
आपको दिखा दूंगा। 20 साल से मैं लोगों को ये समझाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूं कि वो एग्जाम्पल्स फिलॉसफी में नहीं देने चाहिए, क्योंकि वो अपने
नहीं
आप में
नहीं,
एनीवे।
वो
तो
लोग
प्रश्न ये है कि
फिलोसफी,
क्या कोई ऐसी चीज है जो ज्ञेय है, संज्ञेय है, पर अभिधेय नहीं है?
देखिए
वो
एक
होगी
बात
इनेफेबल।
नहीं, देखिए आपको शायद ये पता, मुझे नहीं मालूम आप इन लोगों को पहचानते हैं कि हम लोगों ने साइंस कांग्रेस में इन सबको बुलाया था, और जो नोबेल प्राइज विनर हैं, कि मैं
नहीं नहीं
इसलिए
नहीं
कह
नहीं
रही
नहीं,
हूँ,
नॉट इम्प्रेस्ड, नॉट
सुनिए,
इम्प्रेस्ड, नॉट इम्प्रेस्ड बाय नेम ड्रॉपिंग,
नहीं नहीं
नॉट
नहीं,
इम्प्रेस्ड
आप
बाय
पूरा
नेम ड्रॉपिंग,
नहीं, आप
नॉट
पूरा
इम्प्रेस्ड,
नहीं आप पूरा
not
नहीं सुनेंगे
impressed,
तो कैसे
not impressed,
पूरा,
not impressed by
नहीं
scientists at
नहीं
all.
ऐसा
Scientists have
ऐसा
nothing
आप
to say
नहीं कह
about it.
सकते।
No, no,
साइंटिस्ट
नहीं, नहीं,
साइंटिस्ट
नहीं,
आर
नहीं,
टेकिंग द
नहीं.
फिलोसॉफिकल
They don't
डिस्कशन,
know philosophical language.
नहीं साइंटिस्ट आर टेकिंग द फिलोसॉफिकल
नहीं,
पोजीशन, मैं नहीं कह रही हूँ
philosophy
कि
की problem
साइंटिस्ट,
philosophers solve करेंगे, scientists नहीं.
नहीं नहीं, you
नहीं.
cannot divide it, you
No,
cannot
we
divide
can,
and
we can, we
no
can,
you
we
you
can,
cannot
and we must,
categorize,
we
no
must,
no
we must. No,
no
no,
no
नहीं,
yeah,
नहीं,
as
no, 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 no,
in
no, no,
this
no, no,
world,
no,
no, in this world it is now multidisciplinary, so you
no,
cannot
no,
say
no, no,
this
no,
is the only
no.
one. No, I think you have to go to all these sources and find out whether they are no or yes, then you will realize. So मैं ये कह रही हूँ कि जहाँ पे
May
अगर
I say
आपको
something?
अगर एक थ्योरी है तो that should apply universally. If there is a theory, it should apply universally. If it doesn't apply universally, then that theory has to be something wrong with the theory that I am changing it. So therefore, because you quoted Nyaya, I went to the Nyaya discussion. And ineffability इसलिए है कि वो you have this and then it is your subjective. अगर आप रसगुल्ला खाएंगे तो मैं उसका स्वाद नहीं, मुझे आगे नहीं आएगा। मैं नहीं कह सकते कि वो बहुत अच्छा है क्योंकि आप चंद्रा सर आपने रसगुल्ला खाया। इट इज योर सब्जेक्टिव एक्सपीरियंस। तो मैं इतनी इन द लेवल ऑफ दिस, in such a level I am talking, which is very easy to understand, कि जहां हम कह रहे हैं कि सब्जेक्टिव एक्सपीरियंस इज इनएफेबल, नथिंग एल्स। एंड जो टंडन सर ने जो कहा वो क्वांटम मैकेनिक्स थी, उसमें वो they are not saying it is why it is happening, they only can say how it is happening. So ये बात जो है क्वांटा की बात, वो the scientists are not knowing it at all as to why it is happening. It could be why those particles are behaving like that, but why? यही तो प्रश्न है ना कि why can't you explain it? Where are your words, where are your experiences, where are your knowledge systems, what methodology that you use to explain? How तो मैं भी कह सकती हूँ, चाय कैसे बनाते हैं आप भी जानते हैं, मैं भी जानती हूँ। मैं पी के आपको ये नहीं कह सकती आहा आपने पिया है, मेरे लिए, मैं आपके लिए पी रही हूँ, ऐसा तो नहीं हो सकता। तो ये बात जो है ये
मैं कुछ कह सकता हूँ?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure. Please.
हाँ, बताइए।
पहली बात तो मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा कि ये कहना कि स्टार्स अपनी पोजीशन से हट गए हैं इसलिए वो ज्ञान नहीं है, ये गलत है। क्यों? क्योंकि उनसे आने वाली जो लाइट रेज हैं उनको चूंकि समय लगता है यहाँ तक आने में, तो वो ये बताती हैं कि जिस समय वो चली थी वहां पर स्टार की पोजीशन क्या थी। अब स्टार अगर हट गया है तो उसकी पोजीशन के बारे में तब पता चलेगा जब हम उन रेस को फिर उस समय के बाद पकड़ पाएंगे। तो ये ज्ञान नहीं है, ये बिल्कुल गलत है, ये वैज्ञानिक ज्ञान है। दूसरी बात मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा कि जो वाई क्वेश्चंस हैं, ये वाई क्वेश्चंस तो साइंस में कभी जवाब में नहीं आते, ये तो मेटाफिजिक्स का realm है और ये स्पेकुलेशन का realm है। और इसमें जो आप सब्जेक्टिविटी की बात कर रही हैं, तो उसको मैंने पहले क्वेश्चन किया कि सब्जेक्टिविटी पे जब हम वेरीफाई कर सकते हैं, communicate कर सकते हैं, तो how can be sure about that what you are saying is correct? It is just a matter of speculation. So there are so many metaphysics, some realistic ones, some metaphysical, some cosmic, talking about idealistic metaphysics. So this sort of idealistic metaphysics is not verified or sustained with the scientific knowledge of today. That is my point.
नहीं, मैंने जो आपने कहा कि लाइट कम्स लेटर ऑन, वो उसी को तो भ्रम कहते हैं, उसको प्रमाण नहीं कह रहे हैं। this is actually in the context of validity and invalidity. The valid knowledge is that I am not having the knowledge of the star because the light has moved on, and therefore it's a knowledge which is wrong knowledge. So ये जो mediate हो गया है, ये जो हट गया है, ये जो हट गया है, इसके लिए जो मैं नहीं देख पा रही हूँ, तो मैं उस ऑब्जेक्ट को नहीं देख पा रही हूँ, क्योंकि वो ऑब्जेक्ट वहां पे है नहीं. अगर वो राकेश चंद्र जी के उसमें ये माया है, जो माया है, हम वो माया देख रहे हैं, चाहे आप उसको किसी और शब्द में बताइए, तो वो जो ज्ञान है वो नहीं हो रहा है. और आपने जो ये कहा, जो आपके एनालिटिक्स स्कूल भी वही कहेंगे इनएफेबल के बारे में, क्योंकि एनालिटिक्स स्कूल को भी उनको भी जो एक्सपीरियंस है, जो सब्जेक्टिव एक्सपीरियंस है, उसके बारे में वो कैसे कहेंगे? अगर नहीं कह सकते, वही तो कह रहे हैं कि जो नहीं कह सकते उसको क्या करेंगे, उसी को ओपेक कहा गया है, इनएफेबल कहा गया है, क्योंकि उसको आप एक्सप्रेस नहीं कर पा रहे हो. तो हम लोग किस लिए लड़ रहे हैं? हम तो वही कह रहे हैं जो आप कह रहे हैं, मैं कह रही हूँ, वो वही आप कह रहे हैं. चाहे वो आप मेटाफिजिकल उसमें देखिए या तो और संदर्भ में, जो आप नहीं कह पा रहे हैं, तो उसके बारे में आपको नॉलेज अगर नहीं हो रहा है, तो आप उसे कहेंगे कैसे? ओके शिप्रा.
थैंक यू मैम, थैंक यू सो मच मैम. और
you better tell Professor Singh to have a seminar in your institution, so that we can all face to face talk.
Yes,
so that
मैम फरवरी में हमारा सिम्पोजियम है मैम. सो वी विल इनवाइट यू ऑल. और मुझे लगता है एक पैनल डिस्कशन ऐसा रखेंगे. सो thanks to everyone. And I think the biggest contribution of our Philosophy Cafe is that it has forced young philosophers like me and scores to young philosophers to study Indian philosophy, contemporary Indian philosophy, and with the help of our professors and teachers like you all, we will surely understand and know a lot more. And thank you, Meera ma'am, thank you, Chandra sir, RP Singh sir, Prashant sir, Ramesh sir, Alok Tandon sir. Thank you everyone for joining us, and stay connected with us for the next episode on 16th September. So thank you. Namaste.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chitra. Thank you.
Thank you.